Our topic is the invention of variable pitch propellers. Variable pitch propellers. So this is related to flying. और जो हवाई जहाज होता है उसके आगे का जो पंख होता है जो घूमता है राउंड, that is the variable pitch propellers. So let's look at the meaning first. First one is aviation. Aviation is related to flying. उड़ान के लिए जो भी फील्ड है वो फील्ड को बोलते हैं एविएशन. कि वो कौन सी फील्ड में है, तो अगर वो हवाई जहाज के रिलेटेड एयरपोर्ट पे काम कर रहा है, फ्लाइट में काम कर रहा है, एनीथिंग लाइक दैट related to flying and plane, it's all called aviation. Blade yani that's a very sharp line of metal is called a blade. Blade is also there in planes. Plane में जो पंख होता है that is the blade. Next is coarse. C-O-A-R-S-E. coarse means rough. जो smooth नहीं है. कैसा नहीं है? Smooth नहीं है, that is called coarse. Next one, confer. Confer का मीनिंग है लोगों के साथ डिस्कस करना, किसी के साथ चर्चा करना, is called confer, right? Next one is cruise. Cruise means टहलना, इधर उधर घूमना, that is called cruise. Cruise also means जो बड़ा सा steamer ship होता है, ship is called a cruise and it's called a cruise liner. Cruise liner लोगों के घूमने के लिए होता है. Next is curiosity. Curiosity એટલે आतुरता, जिज्ञासा, कोई चीज जानने की जो आतुरता है, it's called curiosity. Design. Design is obviously design. Enthusiast. Enthusiast means कोई चीज का शौकीन, जिसको कोई चीज का बहुत शौक है, पागलपन, he is the enthusiast. जैसे फुटबॉल enthusiast. Handle यानी संभालना, कोई चीज को संभालना is called handle. Next is inflexibility. Flexibility यानी जो चीज बदल सकती है, जो अपना शेप बदल सकती है, लेकिन जब आप खुद को कोई चीज से बदल नहीं सकते हो, that is called inflexibility. Next is isolation. Isolation means when you are alone, completely alone, आपके आसपास कोई नहीं है, so you are in isolation. Pitch. Pitch has two meaning. Pitch यानी एक तो मैदान, जमीन को बोलते हैं पिच, जैसे क्रिकेट पिच. पिच का दूसरा मीनिंग है आवाज, वॉल्यूम. किसी की आवाज जो होती है वो हाई पिच, बहुत जोर से कान में लगती है, तो उसको बोलते हैं हाई पिच्ड वॉइस. प्रोलॉन्ग्ड. प्रोलॉन्ग यानी लंबा खींचा हुआ, कोई समय को ज्यादा खींचा हुआ है तो उसको बोलते हैं प्रोलॉन्ग. प्रोलॉन्ग यानी लंबा किया हुआ. प्रोपेलर. तो फर्स्ट लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड प्रोपेल का क्या मीनिंग. प्रोपेल यानी आगे धकेलना, धक्का मार के आगे भेजना, उसको बोलते हैं प्रोपेल. और प्रोपेलर क्या होता है, जो ऐसा टूल होता है जो कोई चीज को आगे भेजता है, इट्स कॉल्ड अ प्रोपेलर. रिलायबली यानी जिसके ऊपर आप रिलाई कर सकते हो, भरोसेमंद, तो भरोसेमंद तरीके से, तो दैट इज कॉल्ड रिलायबली. नेक्स्ट इज रेवोल्यूशनाइज. रेवोल्यूशनाइज लाइक क्रांति ला, कोई पण वस्तु में क्रांति लाओ, दैट इज कॉल्ड रेवोल्यूशनाइज्ड. कि यार ये चीज ने तो दुनिया में क्रांति ला दी. कल जैसे बल्ब की बात की, तो बल्ब ने दुनिया में क्रांति ला दी. द इलेक्ट्रिक बल्ब रेवोल्यूशनाइज द वर्ल्ड. नेक्स्ट इज रोटेशन. रोटेशन એટલે ફરવું, जो चक्कर मारता है, गोल घूमता है, उसे बोलते हैं रोटेशन. नेक्स्ट इज सस्टेन्ड. सस्टेन यानी जो टिका हुआ है, जिसने सब कुछ सहन किया है, जिसने बहुत सारी मुसीबतों का सामना किया है, दैट इज सस्टेन्ड. देन देयर इज टर्बुलेंस. टर्बुलेंस वर्ड आपको फ्लाइट में कई बार सुनाई देगा. जब फ्लाइट में कुछ भी होता है, जैसे बारिश होती है, हवा होती है, और प्लेन जो थोड़ा ऊपर नीचे होता है, हिलने लगता है, जिससे लोगों का पसीना छूट जाता है, उसको बोलते हैं टर्बुलेंस. कि फ्लाइट में थोड़ा टर्बुलेंस है, आपकी फ्लाइट ऊपर नीचे होती है. जैसे गाड़ी में कैसे ऊपर नीचे होता है तो हमें डर नहीं लगता है, लेकिन प्लेन में अगर ऐसा होता है, सो वी फील लाइक वी आर गोइंग टू क्रैश. दैट्स अ टर्बुलेंस. वेरिएबल. वेरिएबल यानी ऐसी चीज जो बदलती रहती है, जो चेंज हो सकती है, दैट इज कॉल्ड अ वेरिएबल. वेरिएबल आल्सो मींस अ नंबर, आंकड़ा जो बदल सकता है, दैट इज अ वेरिएबल. That's all the meaning. So let's find out the correct meaning for each word. Let's begin with the first one, aviation. What is the meaning? Aviation is D. The development, design and use of aircraft. उसको क्या बोलेंगे? Aviation. Blade. Blade is a thin, flat part of a machine. Course.
F.
F, correct. Rough and not smooth. जो smooth नहीं. Confer.
L.
Yes. Discuss, consult with somebody. It's called confer. मैंने मेरे पेरेंट्स के साथ कंफर किया है, यानी कॉन्फ्रेंस करना. कॉन्फ्रेंस में डिस्कशन ही होता है, so it's called confer. Cruise. Cruise is C. To travel at a steady speed पे घूमना. Curiosity. Correct.
E.
Interest, need to know, जानने की जो जरूरत है उसको बोलते हैं curiosity. Next one, design. Design is G. A plan for making something. कोई चीज बनाने के लिए जो plan है, that's a design. Enthusiast. It's a person who is very interested in something. That is an enthusiast. What is handle? Handle is H. To manage, to work well with, किसी से अच्छे से काम करना, चलाना. Inflexibility. That is inability to change, जो change नहीं हो सकता है. Isolation. M. The condition of being alone or separated from others is isolation. Pitch. Which is the angle or slope of something, that is called pitch. Prolonged. Correct. N. Continuing for a long time, often in a negative sense. लंबाया गया है, it has been prolonged. Propeller. Propeller is a device that causes an airplane or a boat to move, जो आगे बढ़ने में help करता है, उसको बोलते हैं हम propeller. Reliably. Yes, dependably. Dependably is R. Next one. Revolutionize. Q. To change completely. Simple meaning kranti lavi. Rotation.
P.
Turning motion is a rotation. Sustained. Strong sudden movements in the air. हवा में है, that is sustained. Turbulence is, sorry, we did a wrong one. Sustained is different. Sustained is S. Having the ability to continue for a long time, लंबा time तक टिके रहना is sustained. और हवा में जो ऊपर में हवा में जो झटके लगते हैं, sudden movements, strong sudden movements in air, that is called turbulence. And last one, variable. Variable is
Change.
able to change. Right? So these are the words for today, and we'll be seeing them in our reading passage. So here we go. Let's start with the reading. The invention of variable pitch propellers. All right. So Prachi, can you start reading the first two paras?
Yes. Until the late 1920s, airplane propellers were made of single piece of wood attached at the center to the drive shaft of the engine. The tilt of the propeller, that is how flatly it faced the wind, was fixed, which meant planes flew as if they had only one gear. If the plane had a fine propeller, it traveled the entire time as if in first gear, working well on takeoff and landing, but working inefficiently during sustained flight. If the plane had a thick, coarse propeller, it traveled the entire time as if in high gear, working efficiently during sustained flight, but making takeoffs and landing dangerous and prolonged. This inflexibility meant that commercial uses of such aircrafts were limited because the plane could not carry heavy loads either safely or efficiently. In 1922, Wallace Rupert Turnbull patented his latest invention, the variable pitch propeller. This propeller in effect gave airplanes gears. The propeller's blade were separate from each other, attached at the drive shaft in the center, and could be moved independently or together to chop the air at different angles. The propellers could be tilted at takeoff and landing to act as if in first gear, chopping less airs with each rotation, and could be tilted while cruising to act as if in high gear, chopping more air with each rotation. With this variable pitch propeller, planes could now take off and land more safely and reliably, carry varying weights, and handle greater variations in wind speed and turbulence.
Until the late 1920s, यानी 1920s तक, air propellers were made of a single piece of wood attached to the center. Center में plane के center में लगाया जाता था to the drive shaft of the engine. लकड़े का पूरा बना था. The tilt of the propeller को जिस तरह से tilt दिया था, that is how flatly it faced the wind, was fixed. एक fixed level पे था, which meant planes flew as if they had only one gear. एक ही gear पे plane चलता था, same speed पे. If the plane had a fine propeller, लेकिन अगर अच्छा वाला propeller था, it traveled the entire time as if in first gear, working well on takeoff. जब आप plane को उड़ाते हो तो बहुत अच्छा जाता है landing, but working inefficiently during sustained flight. लंबी flight में वो अच्छे से काम करता नहीं. If a plane had thick coarse propeller, जाड़े बड़े rough propellers थे, it traveled the entire time as if in high gear. तो high gear में travel करता था, working efficiently during sustained flight. वो flight में उड़ने के टाइम अच्छा था, लेकिन but making takeoffs and landing dangerous and prolonged. लेकिन तकलीफ क्या थी? टेक ऑफ और लैंडिंग में तकलीफ थी, यानी वो दोनों प्रोपेलर में एक ऑपोजिट प्रॉब्लम्स था. दिस इनफ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, यानी ये जो प्रॉब्लम थी जो एक दूसरे से मैच नहीं हो रही थी, meant that commercial uses of such aircrafts were limited. कमर्शियल यानी पब्लिक के उपयोग में तो वो नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि कोई भी मर सकता है, तो वो बहुत कम यूज होता था, because the planes could not carry heavy loads either safely or efficient. तो तब तक हम लोगों ने इसका बिजनेस नहीं बना. In 1922, Wallace Rupert Turnbull, उसने एक आइडिया पेटेंट किया. Yesterday we talked about patent. So he patented his latest invention. उसका नया जो आविष्कार था, उसकी डिजाइन को उसने पेटेंट किया. The variable pitch propeller. उसने क्या बनाया? The variable pitch propeller, यानी जो वेरी करे. His propeller in effect gave airplanes gears. Airplane में उसने gear डाले. The propeller's blades were separate from each other, attached at the drive shaft at the center, and could be moved independently. वो अलग-अलग तरह से हिलते थे और together to chop the air at different angles. तो अलग-अलग level पे घूमते थे. The propellers could be tilted at takeoff. Takeoff पे time पे थोड़ा tilt कर सकते हैं, landing to act as if in first gear. तब वो एकदम slow काम करते, तो अच्छे से landing और takeoff हो, chopping less air with each rotation. And could be tilted when cruising. जब आप उड़ रहे हो तब उसको tilt वापस कर दे to act as if in high gear, chopping more air with each rotation. With this variable pitch propeller, ये जो पंख था उसका, planes could now take off and land more safely and reliably. तो reliably take off भी कर सकते थे, साथ में carry varying weights, बहुत वजन भी ले जा सकते थे, and handle greater variations in wind speed and turbulence. यानी it was very helpful to them. Priyanka Patel, can you read? Priyanka? Sakina, can you read? Sakina. It's another. Sakina, are you there?
Yes.
Can you read? Go ahead.
Okay. Thambul was born in New Brunswick in eastern Canada in 1876. He studied mechanical engineering at Cornell, then continued his post-graduation studies in Europe and returned to work at the Edison Labs in New Jersey. In 1902, just 1 year before the Wright brothers made their historical flight, Thambul went back home, set up his own lab in Urban, and started running his own aviation experiments. To begin,
Okay.
Thambul,
So Turnbull was born in New Brunswick in eastern Canada. So now this guy we're talking about, the guy, what is his name? Wallace Rupert Turnbull. He studied mechanical engineering, Cornell University में study किया, then continued his postgraduate studies in Europe and returned to work at the Edison Labs in New Jersey. Edison Lab यानी किसका lab? Thomas Alva Edison. In 1902, just 1 year before the Wright brothers made their historic flight, यानी 1902 में पहली बार लोगों ने विमान भरा था. That was by the Wright brothers. उसके एक साल पहले Turnbull went back home, set up his own lab in the barn. उसके अपने खेत में खुद की लैब बनाई, started running his own aviation experiments. To begin, Turnbull needed a wind tunnel. उसको wind tunnel की जरूरत थी. He built a wind tunnel, the first in the world, out of packing materials. Packing materials में से उसने बनाया, cardboard में से वगैरह. In it, he tested different designs for propellers and wings. His research is the basis for many of the successful designs still in use today. तो उनकी जो रिसर्च थी वो आज भी हमारे लिए उपयोगी है. Alone in his barn, उसके पास जो खेत था उसके अंदर अकेला बैठ के Turnbull designed and tested his variable pitch propeller. वहीं पे उसने टेस्ट किया. It was tested successfully in flight in Barron, Ontario, again in Canada, in June 6, 1927. वहां पे पहली बार उन्होंने फ्लाइट में उसे टेस्ट किया. Turnbull spent his life experimenting and designing for the new science of aviation in his barn in Rothsay. उसने लाइफ किसमें लगा दी? Experimenting and designing. He sometimes conferred यानी कभी-कभी बैठ के डिस्कस किया करता था with fellow aviation enthusiast Alexander Graham Bell. Alexander Graham Bell के साथ बैठ के वो लोग चर्चा करते थे. Fellow means उसके जैसा दूसरा साइंटिस्ट जो एविएशन का शौकीन था. कौन था वो? Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia is also in Canada. But for the most part, he worked in isolation. लेकिन ज्यादातर वो अकेले ही काम करते थे. Unlike most engineers, दूसरे engineers के मुकाबले, he chose not to work in a university laboratory or in a lab such as Edison. दूसरे लोगों की तरह लैब में काम करना पसंद नहीं करते थे. Where he would have been supported by like-minded engineers and physicists. जहाँ पे उसको दूसरे scientists और physicists मिले, वो नहीं चाहते थे. Instead, he spent his adult life in a barn. He equipped himself. तो अपने ही खेत में उन्होंने पूरा बनाया हुआ था. Barn is what? जहाँ पे सूखी घास वगैरह रखते थे और उसमें ही खेत में ही बैठ के वो करते हैं. Depending on his intelligence, curiosity and work ethic, वो खुद की मेहनत लगन पे डिपेंड करते थे. He revolutionized flight. उड़ान की जो फील्ड थी उसमें उसने क्रांति ला. He is honored in Canada as a pioneer in aviation. Aviation में वो एक सबसे आगे के इंसान तरह से गिने जाते हैं in Canada and a genius in the study of aerodynamics. Now you guys have 5 minutes to solve these questions. True, false, and not given. A coarse propeller work better during sustained flight than during landing. कोस्ट प्रोपेलर, जो बड़ा लकड़े का जो प्रोपेलर रहता था, वो सस्टेन फ्लाइट में अच्छा काम करता था, लेकिन लैंडिंग में गड़बड़ करता। यहाँ लिखा है कोर्स propeller traveled its entire in high gear, working efficiently during sustained flight. लेकिन take off और landing में it was dangerous. So answer is, what is the answer?
False.
False.
કેમ false આવે? True. આ તો લખેલું છે. કોર્સ પ્રોપેલર જે હતું it was working better, sustained flight માં સારું હતું, landing માં ગડબડ કરતો. અહીંયા પણ એ જ લખ્યું છે કે if had a thick course propeller, so it traveled the entire time in high gear, working efficiently in sustained flight, but making takeoff and landings dangerous and prolonged. Second one, variable pitch propellers cause problems because of their inflexibility. Inflexibility ના લીધે problems થતી હતી. Variable માં થતી હતી કે પેલા જૂના વાળામાં? જૂનામાં થતી હતી. તો these are, they were flexible. So answer is
False.
yes, false. All right, the blade of a variable pitch propeller could be moved to different angles. એને આગળ પાછળ કરાતું હતું, આપણા કે એંગલ ચેન્જ કરાતી હતી. થતી હતી કે નહીં થતી હતી?
True.
True. Flexibility હતી. A plane with a variable pitch propeller was easier to handle in turbulence. જેના પણ અંદર વેરિયેબલ ની અંદર pitch propeller હોય તો turbulence ના ટાઈમે વધારે easy પડતો હેન્ડલ કરતા. Answer is, what is it? It's true. And next, variable pitch propellers were expensive to manufacture. પણ બનાવવાના મોંઘા હતા.
Not given.
Not given. Any doubts in either of them? કોઈમાં છે doubt? Okay, turbulence માં easy હતા, અહીંયા લખેલું છે. See, propeller planes could now take off and carry variable weights and handle greater variations in speed and turbulence. Okay, so Wallace Rupert Turnbull designed his propeller, variable pitch propeller. कहाँ पे? Cornell University में किया, Canada में किया, at the home of Alexander Graham Bell और in Edison's lab. कहाँ पे किया था? कॉर्नेल में गया था पढ़ने के लिए, वहां पे कुछ इन्वेंट नहीं किया. यहाँ पे इन्वेंशन कहाँ हुआ? सी, यहाँ पे मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग कॉर्नेल में किया. फिर he returned to work at Edison lab में काम किया. फिर वापस कहाँ पे आए वो? उन्होंने वो कहाँ पे बनाया? कनाडा में उनको ऑनर मिला, राइट? लेकिन पिच प्रोपेलर कहाँ बना? It was tested successfully in Barron, Ontario. So कहाँ पे हुआ ये? कनाडा में हुआ ना? So answer is in Canada. कहाँ पे बना pitch propeller? In
One more line is written for the related to Alexander Graham Bell. Yes.
तो यहाँ पे वो था कि अलेक्जेंडर ग्राहम बेल के साथ वो he sometimes conferred, वो मीटिंग के लिए आते थे.
Above.
यहाँ पे here, the Wright brothers here. See, this is one what Alexander Graham Bell is mentioned here, right? And Thomas Edison's lab is mentioned here. Look at.
But he was just working there. Okay.
He was just working there. See, here he was working, here he was conferring. Conferring means એની સાથે ચર્ચા માટે આવતો. That was in Canada only. Nova Scotia is also in Canada. But where he successfully made it in Ontario. See, it was in his barn, and his barn was also in Canada. So overall, it was in Canada only. So answer is Canada. Now Turnbull preferred to कहाँ पे काम करना पसंद था उसे? With other inventors, in a university lab, with like-minded engineers or in isolation. कैसे काम करना पसंद?
Isolation.
अकेला पसंद था उसे. So answer is D. All right, so let's look at the word family here, and we have the first one, enthusiast. Enthusiast यानी कोई चीज का शौकीन. Aviation enthusiasts are very interested in flying. Football enthusiasts love to watch football. Enthusiasm यानी उत्साह. Turnbull's enthusiasm for aviation kept him searching for a better propeller design. उसकी जो उत्साह थी, उसकी वजह से वो नई सोच सर्च करता रहा. Enthusiastic यानी उत्साहित. Turnbull was enthusiastic about aviation, and enthusiastically, the inventor worked enthusiastically to turn his idea into reality. Next is inflexibility. जो flexible नहीं है उसकी quality. The inflexibility of early propellers made planes difficult to fly. Inflexible. The successful inventor cannot be inflexible. And inflexibly, an inventor should not work inflexibly. He should be flexible. Next, isolation. अकेला. Inventors often prefer to work in isolation. अकेला काम करना पसंद करते हैं. Verb है isolate, यानी किसी को अकेला करना. An inventor may need to isolate herself to do her best work. खुद को अकेला करना पड़ता है और अकेली एकांत जगह पे, that is called isolated. Turnbull set up his lab in an isolated location. Next, rely, यानी किसी पे आधार रखना. तो हमारे पास कंपनी भी है जिस पे हम आधार रखते हैं, reliance, यानी किसी पे आधार. His reliance on others' work caused some to question his research. उसने दूसरों के काम पे जो आधार रखा था उसकी वजह से लोगों ने उसकी रिसर्च पे सवाल उठाए. Rely यानी किसी पे आधार करना. Early pilots could not rely on their planes to carry heavy loads. पहले के जमाने के पायलट्स खुद के प्लेन पे रिलाई नहीं कर सकते थे वजन उठाने. Reliable, भरोसेमंद. The variable pitch propeller made planes more reliable. उसकी वजह से ज्यादा reliable बन गए. Reliably is an adverb. A plane with a variable pitch propeller flew more reliably than earlier planes. Next is Kranti. Kranti એટલે revolution. The invention of the pitch propeller, variable pitch propeller, led to a revolution in flight. उड़ान की दुनिया में क्रांति ला दी. Revolutionize यानी क्रांति लाना, कोई चीज में क्रांतिकारी चीज लाना. Revolutionize. New inventions revolutionize the way we do things. नई चीजें हमारे काम करने का पूरा तरीका बदल देती है. Revolutionize कर सकती है. An adjective is revolutionary, क्रांतिकारी. Turnbull's propeller was a revolutionary invention. क्रांतिकारी आविष्कार था. And then last one is variable. Researchers look at different variables in their studies. वो अलग-अलग variables को देखते हैं. जब एक चीज दूसरे से अलग पड़ती है उसे बोलते हैं vary. Planes carry different kinds of loads and the size of the load will vary. Variable, it's an adjective also. It might be more difficult to fly if the winds are variable, and variably planes carry variably heavy loads. So now answer the questions. Select the right part of speech. Like most inventors, Wallace Rupert Turnbull was filled with curiosity about many things. बहुत सारी चीजों की curiosity से भरा था. He became dash about designing a propeller. He became enthusiastic about designing a propeller that would fly more efficiently during takeoff and landing as well as while cruising. Propellers on early planes were dash. कैसे थे? They were inflexible. That is, the angle could not be changed, so they did not fly efficiently under certain conditions. But because of this, pilots could not always dash on their planes to perform well. Could not rely on their planes to perform well. Turnbull worked in a dash barn in New Brunswick. Isolated barn in New Brunswick to develop a new kind of propeller. He could dash the angle. बदल सकता था. He could vary the angle or pitch of this propeller, which made it efficient under different conditions. Turnbull's invention led to a dash in flight. Led to a revolution in flight. Alright, so word skill. Prefix in लगाने से कोई भी चीज होती है वो negative बन सकती है. जैसे in can make the meaning of a word negative. Look at, read the sentence and write a definition for the underlined word. तो inventing involves trying out different ways of doing things. आविष्कार करना यानी अलग-अलग चीजों से experiment करना. So it is important for an inventor to be flexible. तो flexible होना जरूरी है. तो flexible means क्या meaning हुआ? Ability to change. Able to change is called flexible. लेकिन because of the position of the propellers on early airplanes was inflexible, it was always set at the same angle. वो flexible नहीं था. That is not able to change. In IELTS, you will have to learn words like that, so you can understand different parts of the word family. So final lesson here, listen to the conversation, choose 4 letters A to G. Which 4 facts about the flight demonstration will the students include in their report? Flight demonstration जो होगा उसमें से कौन सी 4 चीजों को बच्चों को अपनी रिपोर्ट में मेंशन करना है? The name of the plane's designer, plane किसने डिजाइन किया उसका नाम, the name of the passengers, the number of passengers, the size of the propeller, the speed of rotation, the length of the flight, the weather condition. Ready everyone? Listen and answer the question.
Unit 10, Inventions. The invention of variable pitch propellers. Listen to 2 students discussing a flight demonstration.
That was a fascinating flight we saw. Now we have to write up the report for the school newspaper.
Okay, well, we should start with the name of the designer of the plane.
Right, I'll just write that down. The designer was Steve Wilson, and the pilot's name was Joe Applewood. What about the names of the passengers? Did you get those?
No, but there were 2 of them. We can just put that. We don't need their names.
We should say something about the design of the plane, like the size of the propeller. How big was it?
I'm not sure. It was big, but I couldn't say the exact size.
Well, we should say something about it. What about the speed of rotation? How fast did that propeller move?
I don't know. If we'd had a chance to confer with the pilot, we could have found out, but he left too quickly.
Okay, so we can't include that information. We'll have to write more about the flight. It was a really prolonged flight.
Yeah, he was cruising up there for at least 30 minutes, a lot longer than I expected. So write that down. And what a flexible machine. It handled the turns really well.
Yeah, especially considering the weather conditions. It was so windy and cloudy. There must have been some turbulence.
There probably was. We'll put that in the report too.
So what are the things mentioned? The name of the plane's designer, yes, name of the designer and the pilot, right? Names of passenger not necessary, लेकिन 2 passengers थे तो वो हमें सिर्फ 2 लिखना है. So answer is size of propeller we don't know, speed we don't know, but length of the flight was 30 minutes more than expected, and weather conditions. So A, C, F, G. Right? Great. And we have a question here. See, look at. Do you prefer to work with a group or in isolation? Right? Why? Do you run into a problem when you run into a problem with work? Do you confer with others? दूसरों से चर्चा करते हो? Or do you prefer to find your own solution? या खुद का जवाब निकालते हो? What makes you feel enthusiastic about your work? Right? Okay.